a $350,000 principal, the consequence of an artificial, quote-unquote, housing bubble. Now, so this means that, say, they've owned this house, what did we say it was, for 5 years, and their payments were $2,500 a month. So most of that is still going toward interest. And, you know, the fellow, you know, who the head of household, the man, they're both heads of household, he got laid off last week, but he went back to work this week. And they missed a payment, and they couldn't quite make ends meet. And so their mortgage is in jeopardy. Well, under mathematically perfected economy, counting all prior payments of interest instead toward principal puts everyone, regardless of this refinancing of the principal, puts everyone way, way, way far ahead on their payments. Way far ahead on their payments. Not only does it put us way far ahead on our payments, but at a linear rate of depreciation, since a $100,000 house with a 100-year lifespan, the payments work out to be $1,000 a year, or $83.33 a month. Being as we've reduced the principal to $150,000 on this house, linear rate of depreciation works out to $1,500 a year, less than their monthly payments. $1,000 less than their monthly payments is what their yearly payment would be under mathematically perfected economy. Not only so, being as we've counted this phenomenal payment of $2,500 a month, most of which went toward interest, since we've counted that toward principal, they have paid down their principal so much they might not make another payment on their house for another 10 years under mathematically perfected economy, because they are that far ahead on their equity, which just translates to a just situation of paying for our consumption of production with so much as our own production. We're paying a house for a house instead of 5 houses for a house, and at an artificially inflated price from the beginning. So basically, we've eliminated, just in this much, just in consideration of their house, we have given this couple immediately, out of a $5,000 a month combined salary, we have given them immediately $2,500 a month of free spending money. And 10 years down the road, when they resume paying for the remainder of the equity of the house, which they're finally beginning to consume again because they've overpaid for so long, their payments are going to be 1.5 times $83.33 a month, about $125 a month, figured at a linear rate of depreciation. So we've reduced those $2,500 a month payments down eventually to $125 a month at an overall rate of depreciation. But as I've often explained, under mathematically perfected economy, I don't actually advocate linear rates of depreciation. The payments would actually be far lower than that under mathematically perfected economy in the latter half of a lifespan. We might pay $250 a month in the beginning of a $100,000 home's life with a 100-year lifespan, and in the last quarter of the lifespan you might be paying $10 a month because of de-escalated rates of depreciation, which are necessary to reflect the more or less greater consumption, perceived consumption of the value of the property in its newer parts of its lifespan, and which rates of depreciation are also conducive to encouraging people to consume the entire potential lifespan. That if everybody could buy a brand new house for the same price they could buy, be paying for a very, very old house, of course we would buy new homes. So that's how much that accomplishes for this couple immediately. And in fact, since the house is, half their salaries, this means that the mother of this family can return to the home. She doesn't have to work anymore. We can have mothers in our houses teaching children and disciplining children, and making sure things are the way they can be, if we so desire. So the rest of their spending money goes much the same way. Would we have diminished salaries under mathematically perfected economy? I'm often asked this question. No, not at all. In fact, the company can afford to pay you more, and there's actually more compelling reasons for them to do so, because you can afford to leave a company and go out on your own. A company is basically more compelled than ever to acknowledge the worth of its employees, and more capable to justly reward them than ever under mathematically perfected economy. Why? You work for a grinding shop, and you're good. And one of the clients at the shop, they always come in, they talk to you because you oversee, the layout and the setups which produce the products for them, and your work is right on the money. And they know that if you ever left that company, they'd want to keep track of you. They come to your Christmas parties. They know you. They interact with you all the time. They talk to you. They consult with you about, improvements of their product. How would we do this? Is this feasible? How much would it cost us? How much, what's the upside and what's the downside of whatever the proposition? So the fact of the matter is, under this economy, that person could never afford to go out on their own, because they're paying, like this family that we're discussing, they're paying all their money to artificial indebtedness, and multiplied by interest, and they have no room for savings. Whereas under mathematically perfected economy, you have the skills, you have the client. This guy doesn't treat you right at this company. Guess what? You go down, you talk to the common monetary foundry, and you say, okay, I have this guy, I've always done this work. If I leave this company's going to lose that contract. They're going to want it done by me. This is what it's going to cost me to buy one of these machines. This machine is $20,000. I do $250,000 worth of work for this company every year. The machine will last 50 years. If I buy it brand new, the payments are going to be $20 a month. Therefore, I can afford to do this. I'm going to rent this building for whatever it's going to be, $1,000 a month to $250 a month. I'm going to buy it for $100 a month under mathematically perfected economy. So bingo, for $100 a month, I've got a building. For $20 a month, I've got the machine I need, and I already have the clientele, so I leave. Why? Because my employer treated me wrong, isn't paying me enough, isn't paying me nearly enough. I might be happy to accept an equitable share of this, but we're not even close to that. And after 5 years, bye, I'm gone. You stepped on my foot one day, I'm out of here. So under mathematically perfected economy, employers are going to have to reward employees justly. What further things?
Actually, before you go on that one, Mike, the question I would have on that is the company you are suggesting would want to pay their employees more and more, but of course they still have a product to sell at the end of it, and the labor costs are a big part of the pricing for that product itself. So would that not be a problem?
No, you're absolutely right. Those are limiting factors, okay? But in the case of each of these companies, the existing one and the prospective one that the employee leaves, we have a completely different set of situations now. Now, what happens? You have, a slum landlord who charges incredible fees for industrial job sites, shop sites, based basically on what those companies can make. They want a huge cut in it. Okay, under mathematically perfected economy, you could own the property for a tiny fraction of this. So this eliminates this cost, which is a huge cost. I'm constantly hearing reports of businesses that have existed for 20 years and more right now that have prospered until 2 or 3 years ago, and as things are going off the deep end now, they're moving these businesses home because they can't even afford to pay their rent, and the rent you find is huge. You see. Also, companies go into debt. Another thing is the very nature of a corporation. What are corporations have been about? Falsehoods in many ways for a long time. During the 90s, we had the false .com boom, and most of those companies made their money over an IPO, an initial public offering. That is, when they came up with a scam that was sufficient to deceive people into thinking if they invested in it that they could make a lot of money back, they dropped it on their stocks on the market and collected. They spent, a typical story during this so-called greatest industrial expansion in modern history that Bill Clinton claims. Most of these companies, the few survivors of them never made a penny of profit until after Clinton left office, and there are few of those. Most of the money got spent on Lamborghinis and office parties, and these are true facts. You see. Now, the thing is, these aren't the things that increase prosperity, and all of that actually committed this company to pay these quote-unquote investors perpetually ever afterward. Mathematically perfected economy eliminates the whole impetus and facade of such situation. If you're an ace at whatever you do, and a market can sustain you, you can issue at your own risk a promissory obligation to commit to finance yourself for whatever you need at minimal cost. And if you need a house under this system, you've got to commit to paying for 5 houses over a fraction of the lifespan of the house. Under mathematically perfected economy, if you need a house, you commit to only paying for a house over the lifespan of the house, which is far greater than the minimal amount of time that you're paying 5 houses under this system. And it's this reduction of costs across the board which free up further money for businesses which have these costs, to pay their employees otherwise. Now, if those abilities don't exist in those businesses, then they don't exist for that employee to go out on their own either. You see, so I'm not advocating something that doesn't exist. I'm just explaining how a typical situation enables, these kinds of improvements or rectifications, I might say, in justice. Truth of the matter is, generally, a tremendous amount of money, which actually doesn't even go to an initial startup, is required often to align money up. I hear of practically